hope you guys are doing well. So, I haven't made a video in a few weeks. It feels like an eternity actually. I finally have some time to myself and I thought I would take the opportunity to make a video. Ivy isn't actually here today, she's being babysat, so that's been great. It's been like it's actually the first time that she hasn't actually been here, so it's kind of strange to me, but I thought because I have all this time, I may as well make this video. And I do recall saying that I would share my labour and delivery story, and it's actually been 10 weeks tomorrow since I gave birth, so I'm sort of starting to get hazy about it. Also, I really want to share it with you guys before I forget a lot of things. So the whole thing pretty much started on the 14th of August, the day before she was born. I was just going to my normal prenatal appointment. I was pretty much seeing my doctor every week anyway, and I was 40 weeks and 1 day on the 14th, so I was a day overdue anyway. So Hayden and I get there and we go into the doctor's room and everything, thinking everything's fine, and she automatically just said, "I'm quite concerned about you, you don't look well, you look very inflamed, like when you have pre-eclampsia you look very swollen." And so she took my urine samples and everything and she said, "Wow, you've got 3 times more protein in your urine than you should have." So she basically said to us on the spot, "You need to give birth to this baby within 24 to 48 hours. And I was like, what? So I was in panic mode and I wasn't expecting it at all. It was a really huge surprise. I think I was a bit more anxious and scared compared to Hayden. He was just sort of like sitting there being all swell. So yeah, that was a huge shock to the system. In a way though, I was kind of glad that I knew I was going to give birth to her in the next day or two, because that sort of eased my mind a little bit, because when you don't really know you're going to go into labour, it sort of keeps you up at night. Like I know, like the week before she was due, I kept on wondering, oh, am I going to go into labour? Am I going to go into labour? Tongue-tied, sorry. So yeah, in a way it was good, but then in a way it was kind of bad because I knew what was coming and I was a little bit frightened, I guess. And the pre-eclampsia kind of threw me off guard. I didn't even really know much about pre-eclampsia, so that day when we got home I sort of read through it quickly, and it's sort of just really high blood pressure, so I guess it was understandable why she wanted me to go to hospital straight away. So she basically wrote up a referral letter and I had to give that to the hospital when we got there. So anyway, after the doctor we pretty much went home. We like raced around trying to get everything packed. I had a quick shower. I was just there were so many emotions going through my mind at that point, and it was so stressful as well because we had just moved in. We had moved in literally, we moved everything the day before, so on the 13th we moved everything. That was her original due date. So I think from that and being on my feet a lot that day really brought on the sweat, like the swollen legs and everything, and the high blood pressure. I felt like fine though, like I didn't feel that bad, but I did feel different only because I was full term in a pregnancy. But I don't know, it was really strange. And I remember just being in the shower being like, oh my god, I'm going to go into labour like within 24 hours. It was freaking me out a bit. Once we got everything organised and together, we left the house and drove straight to the hospital. And we got there and everything seemed fine. I handed in the referral letter. They're like, okay, sit down, it's fine. So we waited a little bit and then we got sent into a room. And then I had to get all these like blood tests and everything. They sort of wanted to make sure that the pre-eclampsia was, moderate and not. They would check. They always said, we're just going to see if it's a mild, and if it is, then you should be okay to go home. And I'm like, are you sure? Because my doctor seemed pretty, accurate that I needed to give birth to this baby. And it was probably that night, and waiting around was probably the worst night. I hated it. Like we got there at around 2:30 in the afternoon, and we didn't actually officially get admitted until about midnight that night. It was ridiculous. So we were waiting for several hours, and in the meantime I was getting all these tests done and I had to have this what do you call it, this like strap around my belly to sort of monitor her heartbeat and everything, see if everything was okay. That was kind of exciting though, because you could hear everything. And then I think the most frustrating thing about it was that, you know, no one would tell me anything. Like the doctor sort of came in and just sort of explained what the pre-eclampsia was and what they were going to do next, like all these tests. But the thing was, because I was getting my blood taken out, it was taking a while like for my blood to get sent to the pathology. So I think that's why it took so long for us to actually get admitted. And I think some of the midwives didn't think it was that serious, so they were nearly going to actually send me home. Like they were sort of unsure if I should stay there or just go home. So yeah, it was just really upsetting not knowing what the hell was going on pretty much. And it got to a point where I got really emotional and I was so tired. I just wanted to sleep, you know. I was full term and I was exhausted, so I really needed to sleep if I was actually going to be giving birth. So as soon as I found out that I was staying in hospital that night, I thought, this is great, I'm going to be able to get really good sleep and like be all energized for, you know, the delivery and everything. But it was the complete opposite. The doctors pretty much wanted me to monitor my blood pressure, so I basically had to buzz them every few hours and they had to take my blood pressure. It was ridiculous. I hated it. I didn't realize that the pre-eclampsia was so, like, you really had to monitor it every hour. So that was a bit of a pain, and I didn't really get much sleep at all. Like the bed was pretty uncomfortable, but I'm not even going to get into that. And yeah, so what was I saying? Yeah, so the midwives and everything would come in, like, you know, every hour or two to take my blood pressure. But at the same time, it was sort of, when I was laying down especially, I sort of felt pains, but I thought I was sort of feeling like that pain a couple of nights beforehand as well. I thought it was just normal, like my you know, my body getting prepared for the delivery, labor and delivery and everything. But this night in particular was quite strong. It wasn't like painful, but I felt quite tight. So I didn't really know what was going on, but I thought maybe because I was a bit anxious or something, it was just making it a bit more sore down there. But it wasn't painful, like I was like, you know, screaming or whinging or anything to Hayden. It was fine. And it was pretty early in the morning actually. The main doctor came in and he basically said, you know, we've been monitoring you and your blood pressure is pretty much the same as last night. The thing that they kept on explaining was this was like a Thursday night, this was Friday morning, sorry. And they said, look, we don't really induce until Sunday. So they said, if your cervix hasn't, you know, stretched or opened or anything, then, you know, you should be fine to go home. And then just come back in on Sunday and we can induce you then. And I thought that was kind of odd for them to say, because I kept on thinking about how concerned my doctor was, and I've known my doctor since I was like a little kid, so I trust her more than I do these random people I just met. So I was a bit concerned, but basically he just... That's weird, I just heard the door open. 1 second. I'm so sorry about that. I totally freaked out. The front door just opened completely by itself. That was so weird. And it's not even really that windy outside. But the front door is pretty retarded. We really need to get that fixed. That was one thing the builders didn't do right. But anyway, what was I saying? Yes, so the doctor said, you know, if you haven't progressed at all, then you should be able to go home and just come back in on Sunday so we can induce you then. So anyway, he checked and everything, he checked my cervix, and then he was quite shocked because I had actually dilated 3 centimeters apparently. And he goes, oh boy, we actually have to get this baby out as soon as possible. This was like early in the morning. I was just eating my breakfast and I was sort of freaked out a bit. I'm like, whoa, okay, so I'm going to get induced within like half an hour, they said. So I was sort of a bit shocked, and I was excited, and I was a bit scared but excited at the same time, to put it like that. And then we got transferred into the labour ward after that. So Hayden came with me, we moved everything, and then I just remember laying on the bed there and the two midwives there sort of getting everything ready for the induction. And that sort of really started to hit me then, and the same doctor came in actually to, you know, pop my waters or whatever they have to do. And that wasn't painful at all. I didn't feel a thing. The funny thing about that is when he finished, he was getting like the instrument or whatever he was using outside of me, and he actually got a bit of her hair. I couldn't believe it. Like, it was just sitting on like the tongue or whatever he was using. And I was like, that was amazing. She must have a lot of hair. So they kept it for me and put it in this little keepsake thing to cover it. So I thought that was great. So I'll be putting that in her baby book. But anyway, yeah, so after my waters broke, that's pretty much when everything started to pretty much go ahead. And I remember just not feeling anything for quite a while. I think it was like the first 30 minutes. I'm like, oh, this is easy. Like, it's not like, it was sort of like I could feel things, but it wasn't really that painful at all. I'm like, oh, okay, I hope this is like this for the rest, but I knew it wasn't going to be. But I thought, oh, I can take it, I can take it. So I didn't really need any pain relief or anything at that time. And then the most shocking part of it was within an hour, no, within 30 minutes after that, so pretty much within an hour after I got induced, they started to become a lot more stronger. And then the next 10 minutes they became even more stronger, then the next 10 minutes they became even more stronger, and I'm like, whoa, 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 this is really hurting me. Like, is it really supposed to be this painful? Like, I think the most surprise was how fast the induction was. At this point, I think it was like 2 hours into the whole labour, I was in excruciating pain. I remember standing up for most of it though. I was trying so hard to stand up, because I know if you're standing up and everything and you're moving around like swaying, it can sort of speed up the whole birth and everything. So I was like kneeling on people and everything. I tried the gym ball, but that just was retarded. It was way too small and I knew I was going to slip if I even went on that. So I was trying my hardest to stay upright, and my contractions just became so strong that I really, really wanted the epidural. Oh, by the way, I was actually on gas and air within like an hour when I was induced. I forgot to mention that actually. So I got the gas and air. That was really great actually. That really made me kind of like dopey, I guess. And it's funny because I think the gas and air sort of made me not remember a lot of things, because I always asked like Hayden and family members, was I screaming? Like, I don't even remember if I was screaming or not. It was really funny, but I was like in pain and making noise. But it's just funny how gas and air sort of doesn't, it's sort of like a memory loss thing. It's weird. But yeah, the gas and air I remember sort of helped, but it didn't take away the pain completely. It just sort of relaxed me a bit more. And it didn't make me nauseous or anything. The midwife said it might make you a bit nauseous, but it didn't at all. So the gas and air was really great. I was just sort of like sucking on it all the time, constantly. And then within, yeah, so it got to like 2 hours, and then that's when I started asking for more pain relief. I was just in so much pain. I couldn't believe it. It was such a shock to me, because I really thought it would have just progressed slowly, like the pain and of the contractions, but it just came on so quickly. It was amazing. So I was asking for the epidural. I'm like, please get me the epidural. And the midwife was like, you've only been in labour for like an hour or two. And I'm like, please, I'm in so much pain though. And I thought, oh my God, if I've only been in labour for an hour or two, then my God, what am I going to be like in the next 10 hours? Like, I'm going to be dying. So they were quite hesitant to give me the epidural that early. And I think it took them like at least an hour for the guy, the epidural guy to come in. And as soon as he came in, they told me to sit on the bed, and I could barely, like, I was in so much pain and agony that I couldn't even sit still. Like, I remember moving around a lot. That's what I remember doing, moving around a lot. I think I even, because I had like IV drips and everything in my arms to keep my blood pressure stable, I actually knocked one out of my hand. It was really It was pretty bad actually, because there was blood all over my hand, but anyway, I didn't really care at that point. So anyway, the guy was there, and the midwife told me to sit down and just sort of, you know, keep my back straight so he could put it in me. And Hayden's mum was actually in the room as well. So there was Hayden, his mum, and also my auntie, because my auntie sort of is pretty much like my mum anyway. And so I remember, yeah, Hayden's mum said, should you check her? Like, she does seem quite in pain and everything, and it seems like it's progressed a lot. So the midwives checked, and they were so shocked that I was actually crowning. Like, the baby was actually coming within 2 hours of me being in labor. And they said, oh my God, it's too late, it's too late. You're gonna have to start pushing. And I was like, what? They said I was 10 centimeters dilated already. So at that point I was like, oh my God, I was really surprised, and I was sort of freaking out because they wouldn't let me have the epidural. I was in so much pain. I'm like, I can't do this, I can't do this. But the midwives were really good. You know, they said, just try not to scream, just, you know, take deep breaths. And I really just wanted her out, so I was pushing the hardest I could. But I think that was the worst part about it, was just the crowning of her head and just trying to push that. I know it sounds disgusting, but just pushing her head out was the most hardest thing I've ever done in my life. It was just really, really painful, and I don't think I'll ever forget it. And I just remember like laying there, like trying to suck the gas in air. Like, I was really full on with the gas in air because I knew I couldn't have the epidural. And yeah, I was scared. I was really scared, to be honest, because I thought I'd be pushing for hours and hours. But soon enough, she popped out within 24 minutes. I just read the birth thing, and I was only pushing for 24 minutes. I was so lucky. And as soon as I saw her, the pain just went away, and just seeing her face for the first time was so magical. Oh my God, I'm gonna cry. I don't know why I'm crying. So emotional. It was strange though, because as soon as I saw her, I didn't cry. I think I was in so much shock that it went so fast. Just hearing her cry was just amazing to me. And it was just such a, yeah, it was just such a great moment, and I'll never forget it. Yeah, so she laid on my chest, skin on skin, which was really beautiful. And, you know, she was crying a lot, but then she calmed down once she's like, apparently their sense of smell is quite good, so she automatically knew that I was her mother. So that kind of calmed her down a bit. I was so relieved that, you know, I had given birth. I was so proud of myself. I just was in such shock that it was so quick. Like, I just couldn't believe how fast the whole delivery process was. I was very lucky, but I think it was, you know, the induction. I have heard that inductions can go quite quick, but not as quick as that. So a few hours had passed, and then they took her off me, and then Hayden had a hold of her, and he loved that. He hates hospitals as well, and like, I remember when I was in labour, he wasn't feeling that great, so he had to sit down a lot. I think he just hated seeing me in so much pain, to be honest, but he was really good support. And yeah, I just remember him being next to me saying, you can do it, you can do it. So that was sort of motivating me to really, you know, get her out. And so when she was all, you know, rugged up and in her own bed and everything after, they needed to check me and everything to see if everything was okay, to see how much blood I had lost, and to check my blood pressure and everything like that. And then another doctor came in, and I think the worst part about the whole thing was delivering the placenta. It was quite interesting though, because it didn't really hurt that much. I think I pushed maybe twice and that was it, and it just came out. They sort of had to just tug it, and then it came out. And I sort of looked at it, and it was quite gross, to be honest. They said that it had calcified a bit because of the pre-eclampsia, so it was a good thing that she came out pretty quickly. I think myself and Ivy were in just such shock because it was so quick. My body was in shock completely because I remember shaking a lot. I don't know if that was because of the gas and air or like a side effect or something, but I'm pretty sure it was because of the pre-eclampsia. I just remember shaking profusely for like hours and hours. It was weird. Yeah, I think my body was just pretty much in shock. And another doctor came in, and I think the worst thing was getting the stitches. I had a 2nd-degree tear down there, so they needed to stitch me up, and I hated it. I did get an anesthetic, so it was just, I didn't really feel much, but it was just the knowing what they were doing down there made me feel a bit cringy. So they stitched me all up. I was eventually moved to, you know, the recovery room with Hayden and Ivy, and then within a few hours after that all happened, I started to get really, I felt really cold, and my blood pressure was really bad apparently at this point. And then all of a sudden I felt like I was actually having a fit, because my body just started shaking non-stop. I couldn't control it. I couldn't stop. It was really freaking me out. And the doctor sort of rushed me to this other area, so I had to move again. And then they needed to monitor because my blood pressure had really gone up a lot, and they had to put more IV drips in me, which I hated. And I even had to end up getting the catheter, which was odd. I don't exactly know what like how serious it all was, but I couldn't even drink like water. Like, they restricted my fluid intake as well, which was really annoying because I was quite thirsty all the time, because, you know, I had just gone through, you know, an ordeal, and I felt dehydrated and I really needed to drink, but they wouldn't let me for some reason, because apparently if you consume fluid, it can really it can really put your life at risk because of the pre-eclampsia. It's got something to do with the liver. I don't really know, you know, full on about it, but yeah, they had to restrict my fluid intake. I could only drink like a little bit, so that sucked. And yeah, I was on like a catheter, and it was just really horrible, because I couldn't really get up and see the baby. She had to sort of come to me, and yeah, it was just really annoying. And yeah, it wasn't nice. I really hope if I have another baby in the future, I don't get pre-eclampsia, because it's not a fun thing. But I stayed in hospital pretty much for 3 days and 4 days, and I think day 2, day 3, I was feeling so much better. They took all the you know, what do you call them, IV drips and the catheter out, but they were still monitoring all my blood pressure, and I still couldn't drink a lot, but I was eating and everything. And yeah, and I'm sort of going into sort of like the aftermath now. I just realized I couldn't put her to my breast at that point, because my boobs are just strange and my nipples were quite flat, to say the truth. So she couldn't really suck, which was a real it was quite upsetting to me, because I really wanted to have that bond with her. But I think the skin-on-skin contact just after she was born really helped though. But yeah, it was just such a shame that she couldn't latch on properly, and you know, she needed formula in the hospital as well, which I was fine with. I was sort of a bit annoyed, but it was fine, because she needed, you know, she needed to be fed. And then yeah, after, I'll just tell you guys this quickly, briefly. So we got home like day 4, and that was really hard. I think I mentioned this previously in my other video. And then yeah, within day 4, day 5, my milk came in. It was really good. I was, you know, getting enough milk for her, and ever since then I've just given her breast milk, which is great. I'm really happy. And I'll sort of get into the whole feeding her, and I'm going to actually do an update with her in my next video. She'll probably be she'll be 10 weeks on Friday this week, so probably I'll do a 12-week update, I reckon, and I'll sort of explain what's been going on with her, and you'll be able to see her. She's grown a lot. She's very she's a long baby, hence because Hayden and I are quite tall as well. But oh my god, she's amazing. She started smiling, and yeah, I'll do the 12-week update very soon. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you soon. Bye.